I'm Rowena, and at 14, my world shattered when my mom, Olivia, abandoned me at Seattle's airport with just $500, chasing a new life with her flashy boyfriend. That moment, standing alone in a strange city, my backpack heavy with betrayal, changed everything I thought I knew about family. This isn't just a story of being left behind. It's my fight to rise above, to find strength in the ashes of my mom's choices. Stick around to see how a scared teen turned pain into power, and you won't believe what happened when I faced her again. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. If my story hits you, hit that subscribe button for more raw, real tales. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this unfolds. I was 14, just a scrawny kid with big dreams and a secondhand laptop, living with my mom, Olivia, in a modest little house in Sacramento, California. Our street was the kind where neighbors waved at each other, kids rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on, and the air always smelled faintly of barbecue in the summer. Mom and I, we were a team. At least, that's what I thought back then. She was my superhero, the kind who could whip up brownies so fudgy they'd make you forget your bad day, or sit through my endless ramblings about wanting to be an investigative journalist. My little reporter, she'd call me, ruffling my hair as I scribbled fake news articles about our cat, Whiskers, stealing socks. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it felt like enough. Our house was small, with creaky floors and a kitchen table that wobbled unless you shoved a folded napkin under one leg. Mom worked as an administrative assistant at a construction company downtown, crunching numbers and organizing schedules for guys in hard hats. She wasn't rolling in cash, but she always made sure we had what we needed. School supplies, new sneakers when mine got holes, even that laptop I begged for so I could start a blog. Nights were my favorite. We'd sprawl on the couch, watching cheesy rom-coms, laughing until our sides hurt. She'd tell stories about her college days, how she wanted to be a painter before life got in the way. I'd soak it all in thinking, this is what family is, just us, making it work. But then about 6 months before everything went to hell, Mom started acting different. It was subtle at first, like a radio station slightly out of tune. She'd come home late, her makeup a little too perfect, her phone buzzing with texts she'd smile at but not show me. I'd catch her humming while doing dishes, which sounds sweet, but it wasn't her usual off-key show tunes. It was like she was auditioning for a life I wasn't part of. Then she started talking about Victor. Oh, Victor, this slick-talking, Rolex-wearing jerk, who was her boss's boss at the construction company. He was the regional director of some fancy real estate division, always flashing his bleached teeth grin and leaving tips that screamed, "Look at how loaded I am." Mom would gush about him like he was some damn movie star. Victor says they're closing a big deal in Seattle, she'd say, her eyes all sparkly. Victor thinks I'd be great at project management. Victor this, Victor that. I wanted to puke. I tried to brush it off. I mean, Mom deserved to be happy, right? She'd been single since my dad, Draven, left when I was 8. That divorce was a blur. Lots of yelling, doors slamming, and me hiding under my blankets with Whiskers. Dad moved to San Francisco, and I barely heard from him after that. Mom said he was too busy with his new life, his tech job, whatever. I'd stopped asking about him by the time I was 10, because every time I did, her face would tighten, and she'd say, "Rowena, he's got his own world now." So I figured, fine, let Mom have her crush on Victor. Maybe it'd make her smile more. But the signs kept piling up, and I was too naive to connect the dots. She started wearing heels to work, swapping her sensible flats for these pointy, clicky things that made her wince by the end of the day. She'd get calls at midnight, whispering into her phone in the backyard like a teenager sneaking around. Once, I overheard her laughing with Victor about a business trip to Seattle, and I swear, the way she said his name sounded like she was tasting candy. I asked her about it one night over dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce, our go-to cheap meal. "Mom, you're not like dating Victor, are you?" I said, half joking, twirling noodles around my fork. She laughed, but it was too quick, too sharp. Don't be silly, Rowena. He's just a good boss. Her eyes didn't meet mine, and that was when my stomach started to knot. The real kicker came when she announced we were going to Seattle. It's a work conference, she said, all casual, like it was no big deal. But they're paying for my flight, and I thought, why not bring you? It'll be like a mini vacation. My jaw dropped. A trip? With Mom? Hell yeah. I'd never been out of California, and the idea of exploring a new city, maybe sneaking in some touristy stuff, had me buzzing. I spent nights Googling Pike Place Market and the Space Needle, dreaming of snapping photos for my blog. Mom even promised we'd hit a bookstore, because she knew I'd rather spend hours with books than at some fancy restaurant. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. The way she avoided details about the trip, like where we'd stay or how long we'd be there. The way she packed her suitcase with new dresses, ones she definitely couldn't afford on her salary. The way she kept checking her phone, smiling at texts I wasn't allowed to see. But I was 14, damn it, and I trusted her. She was my mom, my rock, the one who'd always had my back. I thought this trip was going to be our adventure, a chance to be the team we used to be. God, was I wrong. So there I was, packing my beat-up backpack with my journal, my laptop, and a couple of t-shirts, thinking Seattle was going to be the start of something awesome. I had no idea it'd be the start of the worst day of my life, the day my whole world would crack open like a dropped glass. But that's the thing about storms. They don't warn you when they're coming. They just hit and you're left scrambling to pick up the pieces. If you've ever had someone you love pull the rug out from under you, you know that feeling. The one where your heart's pounding, but your head's screaming, this can't be real. That's where my story starts, in that quiet Sacramento house, before Mom and Victor turned everything I knew into a damn mess. Stick with me because it gets worse before it gets better, but I promise, it's worth hearing how I clawed my way out. The moment we landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, I knew something was off. I was 14, clutching my beat-up backpack like it was a lifeline, my head buzzing with dreams of exploring Seattle with Mom. The plan was simple. She'd do her fancy real estate conference, and I'd tag along, snapping photos of the Space Needle for my blog, maybe even sneaking into a bookstore. But as we shuffled through the terminal, Mom, Olivia, my superhero, my rock, was acting weird. Her eyes darted around like she was expecting someone to jump out of the crowd, and her phone kept buzzing in her hand. She didn't even notice when I tripped over my shoelace trying to keep up with her. We were near the baggage claim, surrounded by the chaos of travelers grabbing suitcases and shouting into phones, when she stopped dead in her tracks. "Rowena, honey," she said, her voice too sweet, like she was trying to sell me something. "I need to handle something with Victor. It's just a quick meeting, okay? You wait here." She shoved a wad of cash into my hand, 5 crisp $100 bills, and pointed to a coffee shop across the terminal. "Get yourself a hot chocolate or something. I'll be back in a couple of hours." I blinked at her, confused. "Wait, what? You're leaving me here?" She flashed that fake smile she'd been practicing lately, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "It's fine, sweetie. You're a big girl. I'll text you soon." And just like that, she turned on her stupid pointy heels and vanished into the sea of people, her suitcase rolling behind her like it was mocking me. I stood there, frozen, the $500 crumpled in my fist. The airport was a whirlwind, announcements blaring, kids crying, suitcases clattering, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "She'll be back," I told myself, plopping down on a bench near the coffee shop. I bought a hot chocolate, mostly to have something to hold, and checked my phone every 5 seconds. An hour passed, then 2. My text to Mom, "Where are you? You okay?" sat unanswered, marked as delivered but ignored. By hour 3, I tried calling, straight to voicemail. "Mom, come on, this isn't funny," I muttered, my voice shaking as I left a message. Nothing. By hour 4, the truth hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't coming back. I wandered to the information desk, my backpack heavier with every step, and asked a tired-looking employee if she could page Olivia Harper. "No one by that name has been registered for a return flight today," she said, barely looking up from her screen. My stomach dropped. I checked the note Mom had scribbled with the hotel address, some place called the Westview Inn, but when I called, they had no reservation under her name, or Victor's. That's when it clicked. She hadn't gone to a meeting. She hadn't even gone to the damn conference. She ditched me, her 14-year-old daughter, in a city I'd never set foot in, to run off with that sleazy Victor. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw my stupid hot chocolate at the wall, but all I could do was slump back onto the bench, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. The airport started to feel like a trap. Families hugged, couples laughed, and I was just there, alone, with $500 and a backpack full of dreams that now felt like a cruel joke. I tried calling Mom again. Voicemail. I texted, "Are you serious? You left me here." No reply. My phone battery was at 20%, and panic was creeping in like a fog. What the hell was I supposed to do? I was 14, not some badass action hero who could just figure it out. I thought about Dad, Draven, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. Mom always said he didn't care, that he was too busy with his tech job in San Francisco to bother with me. But even the thought of calling him felt like a betrayal to her. Stupid, right? She'd abandoned me, and I was still worried about betraying her. I dragged myself to the coffee shop again, nursing a stale muffin to justify sitting there. The barista, a guy with a nose ring and a kind smile, noticed my red eyes. "You okay, kid?" he asked, sliding me a free cookie. I mumbled, "Yeah, just waiting for my mom," but my voice cracked, and he didn't push. That cookie was the first bit of kindness I'd felt all day, and it almost broke me. I pulled out my journal, the one I used to scribble fake news stories, and started writing. Teen girl abandoned at SeaTac Airport. Mother chooses boyfriend over daughter. It was dramatic, sure, but writing kept my hands from shaking. It made me feel like I was still Rowena, the girl who'd be a journalist someday, not just some kid dumped in a strange city. By evening, the airport was quieter, but my head was louder. Fear, anger, betrayal, they churned inside me like a storm. I kept seeing Mom's fake smile, hearing her say, "You're a big girl, my ass." I was a kid, scared out of my mind, with no idea how to get out of this mess. The $500 wouldn't last forever, and I didn't even know if I could get a hotel room at my age. I stared at my phone, battery now at 10%, and scrolled to Dad's number. My thumb hovered over the call button, my heart screaming at me to do it, but my head kept whispering, what if he doesn't care either? I didn't know it then, but that moment, sitting alone in that damn airport, with nothing but a dying phone and a broken heart, was the start of everything changing. Mom had left me stranded, but I wasn't going to let that be the end of my story. The Seattle-Tacoma airport was closing in on me, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. I was 14, abandoned by my mom, Olivia, with nothing but $500 and a backpack that felt heavier with every passing hour. After 6 hours of waiting for her to come back, spoiler alert, she didn't, I knew I couldn't stay in that damn terminal forever. My phone was dead, my hot chocolate was cold, and the barista's pitying glances were starting to sting. Mom had ditched me to run off with her sleazy boyfriend Victor, and I was done sitting around like a lost puppy. So I grabbed my backpack, stuffed the crumpled note with the Westview Inn's address in my pocket, and stepped out into Seattle, a city I'd only seen on Google. The air was cold, sharper than anything I'd felt in Sacramento, and the streets were a maze of noise and neon. I'd never been anywhere this big, this alive, and it scared the crap out of me. My plan was to find the Westview Inn, hoping maybe Mom had left a message there, some kind of explanation. I hailed a cab with $20 of my precious cash, my heart pounding as I read the address to the driver. He dropped me off at a rundown hotel near downtown, the kind with flickering signs and a lobby that smelled like stale cigarettes. The clerk, a guy with a greasy ponytail, barely looked at me. No reservation under Harper, he said, chewing gum. And you're too young to check in anyway, kid. I begged him to check again, my voice cracking. Nothing. I was out of luck and out of ideas. Back on the sidewalk, the city felt like it was swallowing me whole. People rushed by, business types in suits, tourists with cameras, street performers banging on drums, but no one noticed the 14-year-old with a backpack and a face full of panic. My stomach growled, and I realized I hadn't eaten anything substantial since that muffin at the airport. With $480 left, I bought a cheap sandwich and a bottle of water from a corner store, wincing as I handed over the cash. I needed to make this money last, but Seattle wasn't exactly welcoming to a kid with no plan. I wandered toward Pike Place Market, thinking the crowd might make me feel less alone. Big mistake. The bustling market, with its fish-throwing vendors and shouting hawkers, only made me feel smaller, more invisible. By nightfall, I was exhausted, my legs aching from hours of walking. I found a bench in a small park near the market, tucked behind some food stalls. It wasn't safe, I knew that, but what choice did I have? I curled up my backpack as a pillow and tried to sleep. The city's hum, car horns, distant laughter, the clatter of closing shop gates kept me awake, along with the gnawing fear that I was truly on my own. I pulled out my journal, the one thing keeping me sane, and scribbled. Day 1 in Seattle. Mom's gone. I'm sleeping on a bench like a damn hobo. If I'm a journalist, this is my first real story. Writing it down made me feel like I was still Rowena, the girl with dreams, not just some abandoned kid. Around midnight, an older woman with a weathered face and a cart full of trinkets approached me. Her name tag read Helen, and she was selling handmade bracelets near the market. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft but firm, like she'd seen too much to believe any kid was just hanging out on a park bench at this hour. I lied. Yeah, just waiting for my mom, but my red eyes and shaky hands gave me away. Helen handed me a bottle of water from her cart. "Don't stay out here too long, honey. It's not safe. There's a community center a few blocks over. They can help." She scribbled an address on a napkin and pressed it into my hand. I mumbled a thank you, too embarrassed to admit I was scared shitless. I didn't sleep much that night. Every rustle made me jump. Every shadow looked like trouble. By morning, I was starving again, my $480 now down to $465 after another sandwich. I decided to find the community center Helen mentioned. The walk was brutal, my sneakers were rubbing blisters, and the cold Seattle drizzle soaked through my hoodie. The center was a small, crowded building with peeling paint, but it felt like a lifeline. A woman at the front desk, Sarah, looked me over with kind but wary eyes. "You lost, kid?" she asked. I didn't want to spill the whole pathetic story. My mom ditched me for her boyfriend, so I just said I needed help finding a place to stay. Sarah didn't push, but she let me sit in the waiting area and handed me a granola bar. "We've got a phone you can use," she said, pointing to a desk. "Anyone you can call?" That's when I thought of Dad. Draven, the guy I hadn't spoken to in years. Mom always said he didn't care, that he was too busy coding apps in San Francisco to bother with me. But sitting there, with my journal open and my hands trembling, I wondered if she'd lied. My phone was dead, and I didn't have his number memorized, but I remembered his email from a birthday card he sent when I was 10. Sarah let me use the center's computer, and I typed out a message, my fingers shaking. "Dad, it's Rowena. I'm in Seattle. Mom left me here. I need help." I hit send, my heart in my throat, not knowing if he'd even see it. All I could do was wait, clinging to the hope that someone, anyone, gave a damn. That day in Seattle broke something in me, but it also lit a fire. I wasn't just a victim of Mom's betrayal. I was a fighter, scribbling my story, refusing to let this city or her choices swallow me. I didn't know it yet, but that fight was about to lead me somewhere I never expected. I was sitting in the community center in Seattle, my sneakers soaked from the drizzle, my backpack slumped against a chair like it was as exhausted as I was. It had been almost 24 hours since Mom, Olivia, left me at the SeaTac airport with $500 and a bullshit excuse about a quick meeting with her slimy boyfriend Victor. I'd spent the night on a park bench, scared out of my mind, scribbling in my journal to keep from falling apart. Now, in this cramped office with peeling paint and the hum of a coffee machine, I was down to $460, a dead phone, and a flicker of hope that felt more like desperation. The woman at the desk, Sarah, had given me a granola bar and access to a computer, and I'd sent an email to my dad, Draven, not even sure if he'd see it. I mean, I hadn't spoken to him in years, thanks to Mom's lies about him not caring. What if he didn't give a damn either? Sarah, with her kind eyes and no-nonsense ponytail, kept checking on me. "You sure there's no one else you can call, kid?" she asked, sliding me a cup of lukewarm coffee. I shook my head, too embarrassed to admit my mom had ditched me for some real estate hotshot. But Sarah wasn't buying my silence. "Look, I've seen kids like you before," she said, leaning in. "Parents pull crap like this sometimes. Doesn't mean you're alone for good. Let's try something." She handed me a phone and pointed to a quiet corner. "If you've got any family, even someone you haven't talked to in a while, give it a shot." Her voice was gentle but firm, like she knew I was on the edge of breaking. I clutched the phone, my hands trembling as I stared at the keypad. I didn't have Dad's number memorized, but I remembered that old birthday card from when I was 10. The one Mom said he sent out of guilt. I'd kept it, hidden in my journal, because even though Mom swore he didn't care, some part of me never believed her. I dug it out, the edges worn, and there it was, a San Francisco number scrawled in his neat handwriting. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. What if he didn't answer? What if he did and told me to deal with it myself? I took a deep breath, muttering, "Screw it, Rowena, just do it," and dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up, my stomach twisting, when a voice answered, deep, familiar, but rough with surprise. "Hello?" I froze, my throat so tight I could barely speak. "Dad," I whispered, my voice cracking like glass. It's Rowena." There was a pause, so long I thought he'd hung up, and then, "Rowena? Oh my God, sweetheart, is that really you?" The way he said it, like I was the most important thing in the world, broke something inside me. Tears I'd been holding back for hours spilled over, and before I could stop myself, the whole story came pouring out. Mom leaving me at the airport, Victor, the $500, sleeping on a damn bench, the hotel that wouldn't let me check in. I was sobbing, barely coherent, but he listened, his voice steady but sharp with anger. "She left you alone in Seattle," he said, and I could hear him pacing. "Where are you right now? Are you safe?" I told him about the community center, gave him the address Sarah scribbled on a post-it. "Stay there, Rowena," he said, his voice fierce but soft, like he was trying not to scare me. "I'm booking a flight from San Francisco right now. I'll be there in a few hours. Don't move, okay? I'm coming for you." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, and choked out, "You don't have to, Dad. I don't know, figure it out." But he cut me off. "No, you're not figuring this out alone. I'm your dad, and I'm coming to get you." When the call ended, I sat there, the phone still warm in my hand, trying to wrap my head around it. My dad, who I'd been told didn't give a shit, was dropping everything to fly across states for me. Sarah noticed my tears and slid a box of tissues over. "Sounds like you got someone in your corner," she said with a small smile. I nodded, sniffling. "Yeah, maybe." She sat across from me, her own story spilling out. She'd been kicked out by her stepdad at 16, had to scrape by until she found people who cared. "Family's not always the ones you're born with," she said. "Sometimes it's the ones who show up when you need them." Her words stuck with me, like a lifeline in the chaos. She let me stay in the center's waiting area, gave me a blanket, and even found a charger for my phone, though I didn't dare call Mom again. Her voicemail was already burned into my brain. "I'm at a meeting, sweetie. Be good." Be good? Screw that. The hours waiting for Dad felt like forever. I kept replaying Mom's betrayal, her fake smile, the way she handed me that cash like it made everything okay. I wrote in my journal, my handwriting shaky. Day 2 in Seattle, Mom's gone. Dad's coming. I don't know what to believe anymore. Writing was the only thing keeping me from losing it. Every noise outside made me jump, thinking it was Dad, or worse, Mom, showing up to drag me back into her lies. I was terrified he wouldn't come, that this was another trick life was playing on me, but deep down, that call had lit something, a tiny spark of hope that maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt. That moment, sitting in that dingy community center with Sarah's blanket around my shoulders, was the turning point. Mom had broken my world, but Dad's voice on the phone was the first crack of light in the darkness. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in 2 days, I felt like I could breathe. When Dad's arms wrapped around me in that dingy Seattle community center, it felt like the world stopped spinning for a second. I was 14, soaked from the rain, my backpack sagging with the weight of my mom's betrayal. Draven, my dad, who I hadn't seen since I was 8, held me like I was the kid he'd lost, not the stranger Mom said I'd become to him. His jacket smelled like coffee and pine, and his voice cracked when he whispered, "I'm here now, Rowena. You're not alone anymore." I wanted to believe him, but after Mom, Olivia, ditched me at the SeaTac airport for her sleazy boyfriend Victor, trust felt like a broken toy I couldn't fix. Still, that hug was the first thing in 2 days that didn't feel like a lie. We flew back to San Francisco that night, my head pressed against the airplane window, watching the lights of Seattle fade into the dark. Dad didn't say much, just kept his hand on my shoulder, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. I was too exhausted to talk, my journal clutched in my lap, pages filled with angry scribbles about Mom's fake smile and Victor's Rolex. When we landed, Dad drove us to his apartment in a beat-up Toyota, nothing like the shiny SUVs Victor probably owned. The place was small, on the edge of the Mission District, with mismatched furniture and a view of a noisy street. "It's not much," Dad said, scratching his neck, "but it's home." I looked at him, tall, a little gray at the temples, his tech bro glasses sliding down his nose, and thought, "This is it? This is where I'm supposed to start over?" Inside, the apartment was cozy in a messy, lived-in way. There were coding books stacked on the coffee table, a guitar leaning against the wall, and dishes in the sink that screamed bachelor life. But then I saw it, a small wooden box on a shelf, labeled Rowena in Sharpie. My heart stopped. I opened it, my hands shaking, and found a pile of stuff I didn't expect. Letters I'd written to Dad when I was 6, drawings of stick-figure families, a photo of me at my first school play, grinning with a missing tooth. There was even a birthday card I'd sent him at 10, the one Mom said he never answered. "You kept all this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad nodded, his eyes soft. "Every single thing. Your mom. She told me you didn't want to hear from me, Rowena. I sent letters, emails, called until she threatened to get a lawyer. I never stopped trying." That hit me like a damn truck. All those years, Mom had painted Dad as the deadbeat who didn't care, the guy too busy coding apps to bother with his kid. But here was proof, tangible, inked proof, that she'd lied. She'd built a wall between us, and I'd believed it because I was too young to know better. I wanted to scream, to call her and demand why she'd done this, but I was too tired, too raw. Instead, I sat on Dad's lumpy couch, clutching that box like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. The next few days were a blur of settling in. Dad enrolled me in a local high school, a big public one with kids who seemed to have their own language, slang I didn't know, cliques I didn't fit into. But he also signed me up for the school newspaper, knowing my dream of being a journalist. "You've got a voice, Rowena," he said one morning over burnt toast. He was a terrible cook. "Don't let what happened take that away." I nodded, but inside, I was a mess. Mom's betrayal was a knife in my chest, twisting every time I thought about her fake, "I'll be back" promise at the airport. I kept checking my phone, half expecting an apology text, but there was nothing, just silence. School was rough at first. I felt like an alien, the new kid with a story too heavy to share. But the newspaper club was different. There was this girl, Haley, who loved sketching and didn't care that my clothes were thrift store finds. And the twins, Zoe and Aiden, who argued over books like I did, pulled me into their circle. For the first time since Seattle, I laughed. Real, belly-deep laughs. When Aiden tried to pitch a story about the cafeteria's mystery meat. Writing for the paper gave me purpose. I started a column called Street Stories, inspired by my night on that Seattle bench, spilling my thoughts about life in a way that didn't feel like bleeding. Nights with Dad were quiet but good. We'd order pizza, his cooking never improved, and talk about random stuff. His job as a software engineer, my love for investigative journalism, even the time he tried to teach me to ride a bike, and I crashed into a bush. He never pushed me to talk about Mom, but one night I did. "Why'd she lie about you?" I asked, picking at a slice of pepperoni. Dad sighed, his face tired. "Your mom wanted a clean break after the divorce. I wasn't successful back then. Just a broke coder. When she met Victor, I think she saw a chance at the life she always wanted. Fancy, secure. Keeping me out made it easier for her." I stared at him, anger bubbling up. "So she erased you? And me?" He reached for my hand. "You were never erased, Rowena. Not to me." That conversation cracked something open. I wasn't just the kid Mom ditched. I was the kid Dad fought for, even when I didn't know it. Living with him wasn't perfect. His apartment was small, money was tight, and I still woke up some nights dreaming of that Seattle bench, but it was real. For the first time, I felt seen, not like some burden to be managed. I kept writing, pouring my hurt into my journal, turning pain into stories. I didn't know what would happen next, but with Dad by my side and a pen in my hand, I was starting to believe I could rebuild something stronger than what Mom broke. 2 months after Mom, Olivia, left me stranded in Seattle, I was finally starting to feel like I belonged somewhere. Dad's small apartment in San Francisco was home now, with its creaky floors and pizza nights. I was 14, finding my groove with the school newspaper, scribbling stories that made me feel alive. But the scar of Mom's betrayal still burned. A raw wound that flared every time I thought of her fake smile at the airport, handing me $500 like it could erase what she did. I'd stopped checking my phone for her texts. No apologies, no calls, just silence. So when Dad told me she was coming to see me, I felt like someone had dropped a brick on my chest. Olivia was back, and I wasn't ready. It was a foggy Saturday morning when she showed up at Dad's apartment, unannounced. Her SUV parked crookedly on the street. I saw her on the building's intercom screen. Perfectly styled hair, a designer jacket that screamed Victor's money, and that same nervous smile I remembered from Seattle. My stomach twisted. "You don't have to see her," Dad said, his hand on my shoulder, his voice steady but tight. He'd been my rock since he flew to Seattle to get me, and I could tell he was bracing for a fight, but I shook my head. "No, I need to do this." I'd spent weeks writing in my journal, crafting a letter to her in my head, every word dripping with the hurt and anger she'd left me with. This was my chance to say it out loud. I opened the door, and there she was, Olivia, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. "Rowena, honey," she said, stepping forward like she expected a hug. I backed up, my arms crossed, and her smile faltered. "Can we talk?" she asked, glancing at Dad, who stood behind me like a quiet sentinel. I nodded, leading her to the living room, where the lumpy couch and coffee-stained table felt like a slap in the face to her polished exterior. Dad stayed close, and I'd asked Sarah, the social worker from Seattle, who'd become a sort of mentor, to join us as a witness. She sat in the corner, her notepad ready, her presence a reminder that this wasn't just a family chat. This was me taking back my power. Mom started with her usual bullshit. "Rowena, there's been a terrible misunderstanding," she said, her voice sugary, like she was soothing a toddler. I didn't abandon you in Seattle. Victor and I had to handle some urgent business, and I thought you'd be fine at the hotel. I was giving you a chance to be independent." I stared at her, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Independent? At 14, in a city I'd never been to, with $500 and no plan. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as a scoff. "You left me at the airport, Mom," I said, my voice shaking but sharp. "You gave me cash and walked away with Victor. You didn't answer my calls. You didn't even check if I was alive. That's not independence. That's abandonment." Her face crumpled, but only for a second before she straightened, her eyes darting to Dad. "You've been talking to her, haven't you, Draven?" Filling her head with lies. Dad's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. "I didn't need to say anything, Olivia. You left her alone in a strange city. She figured it out herself." I could feel the air crackle, like a storm was brewing. I pulled out my journal, where I'd written the letter I'd been carrying in my heart for weeks. My hands shook as I started reading, my voice low but steady. "Dear Mom," I began. "You told me Dad didn't care, that he was too busy for me, but you lied. I found the letters he sent, the ones you hid. You kept him away to build your shiny new life with Victor, and then you left me in Seattle, like I was baggage you could just dump." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw guilt, real guilt, before she covered it with excuses. "Rowena, you don't understand," she said, her voice rising. "Victor offered me a future, security. I was doing it for us. I didn't mean for you to feel left behind." I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. "For us? You left me with $500 and no way home. You chose Victor's money over your own daughter." My voice cracked, and tears burned my eyes, but I kept going. "I slept on a park bench, Mom. I was scared out of my damn mind. And you didn't even call to check if I was okay." Sarah scribbled something, her face neutral, but her eyes locked on Mom. Olivia's composure broke, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Rowena," she sobbed. I panicked. "Victor said we needed a fresh start, and I thought you'd be fine." I stared at her, the woman who used to make me brownies, who called me her little reporter, now reduced to a stranger begging for forgiveness. "You thought wrong," I said, my voice cold. "I'm staying with Dad. He showed up when you didn't. I don't need you anymore." The words felt like knives, cutting both of us, but I meant everyone. I wasn't her little girl anymore. I was Rowena, and I was done being her afterthought. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, honey," she whispered. "We can fix this." But I shook my head. "You fix yourself first, Mom. I'm done waiting for you to choose me." Dad put his arm around me, and Sarah stood, signaling it was time for Mom to go. Olivia left, her heels clicking on the floor, her SUV roaring away into the San Francisco fog. I sat on the couch, my journal open, my heart pounding. I'd faced her, said my truth, and for the first time, I felt like I was the one in control. Mom had broken me in Seattle, but standing up to her was the first step to rebuilding myself. A year after Mom, Olivia, left me stranded in Seattle. I wasn't the same scared kid who slept on a park bench, clutching a journal like it could save me. I was 15 now, living with Dad in his cozy, cluttered apartment in San Francisco's Mission District. And I was starting to feel like Rowena again. Not the girl Mom abandoned, but the one who dreamed of being a journalist, who could turn pain into stories that mattered. That year wasn't easy. Mom's betrayal left scars that stung every time I thought of her, but standing up to her 2 months ago had lit a fire in me. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was fighting to be whole, and damn if it didn't feel good. San Francisco had become my home, not just a place to crash. Dad's apartment, with its wobbly coffee table and stacks of coding books, was my safe haven. He wasn't rich like Victor, Mom's sleazy boyfriend who'd convinced her to ditch me for a fresh start. Dad was a software engineer, working long hours, but always making time for our pizza nights, where we'd laugh over his terrible cooking or my latest school newspaper article. He'd kept every letter I'd ever sent him, tucked in that wooden box labeled Rowena, proof he'd never stopped caring, even when Mom lied and said he had. Those letters were my anchor, reminding me I was worth fighting for, even when I doubted it. School was where I started to shine. The high school newspaper, the Mission Voice, was my escape and my battleground. I joined as a nervous freshman, but now I was the editor of Street Stories, my column inspired by that night in Seattle, where I'd scribbled my fears under a streetlight. My friends, Haley, with her sketchbooks full of wild art, and the twins, Zoe and Aiden, who bickered like siblings but always had my back, made me feel like I belonged. Haley once said, "Rowena, your writing's like a punch, hurts, but you can't look away." That stuck with me. I poured my heart into every article, writing about kids like me, the ones who felt invisible, the ones whose families let them down. When a local paper, the Bay Chronicle, picked up my piece about surviving Seattle, titled "Stranded but Not Broken," with no names mentioned, it went viral in our little community. Readers, mostly teens, sent emails saying my story made them feel less alone. That was when I knew. My words could do more than save me. They could save others, but the hurt didn't vanish. Some nights, I'd lie awake, replaying Mom's voice at the airport, that fake "I'll be back" promise that still cut like a knife. I'd see her face from our confrontation, tear-streaked but stubborn, trying to rewrite what she did as giving me independence. Bullshit. She'd chosen Victor's shiny life over me, and no amount of apologies could erase that. I'd stopped checking her texts. She sent a few, all excuses, no real remorse. But I didn't hate her anymore. Hate was too heavy, and I was tired of carrying it. With Dad's help, I started seeing a counselor, Ms. Rivera, who Sarah, the social worker from Seattle, recommended. Ms. Rivera said something that stuck. "You don't forgive for them, Rowena. You forgive to free yourself." I wasn't there yet, but I was trying, not for Mom, but for me. Dad was my rock through it all. He never badmouthed Mom, even when I wanted him to. "She's human, Rowena," he'd say, his voice soft but firm. "She made bad choices, but you're not her mistakes." One night over burnt tacos, God, his cooking was hopeless, he gave me a new journal, leather-bound, with Rowena Harper Journalist, embossed on the cover. "You're writing your own story now," he said, his eyes crinkling. I hugged him so hard I nearly knocked over the table. That journal became my lifeline, filled with stories, not just of pain but of hope, of kids like me finding their way. I didn't know what the future held. No one does at 15. But I knew I wasn't the girl Mom left behind anymore. That night in Seattle, sleeping on a bench, scared out of my damn mind, had cracked me open, but it also showed me I was tougher than I thought. Writing for the newspaper, laughing with Haley and the twins, building a new life with Dad. It all taught me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who see you, who fight for you. Mom chose Victor, but I chose myself. I chose Dad, my friends, my words. Looking back, that year was the hardest of my life, but it was also the one that made me. I learned that my worth didn't depend on Mom's love or Victor's money. It came from the fire inside me, the one that kept burning even when I was alone in a strange city. If you're reading this or hearing my story, and you've ever been betrayed by someone who should have had your back, listen up. Their failure doesn't define you. You're enough, and you'll find your people, the ones who'll stand by you through the worst storms. I did, and I'm still standing, pen in hand, ready to write the next chapter of my own damn story. Thanks for sticking with my story, guys. It's been a hell of a ride, from that lonely bench in Seattle to finding my strength with Dad and my words. If you've ever felt betrayed or left behind, I hope this hit home and reminded you that you're tougher than you know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild after someone let you down? Drop it in the comments. Your stories matter. Huge thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep fighting. Keep writing your own story.